Good. I'm Jerry Phillips. I come from a law enforcement background. I'm retired. I'm on staff full-time at our church. I do ministries and education. I'm based in Huntsville at Covenant Fellowship as our home church. And we do a lot of work inside the prison system with offenders as well as the staff. Part of my job now is I'm also the chaplain with the Huntsville Police Department. I'm a volunteer chaplain. But they've sent me to different training schools around the country to learn about church security, all the different aspects of it. And so that's what we're going to focus on in this session. Have you developed a team? Have you developed a plan for church security and all the different aspects of it? So I thought we'd start out this morning by, if you look on the front page, giving you some time to think about where you stand, what you've done as far as church security, and some of the security concerns for churches. We'll start with medical. Do medical emergencies occur at churches? Yeah, many of you have already had that experience. What do you have set up to help people that are having medical emergencies? What about fire? Have you talked about it? Have you practiced what you do in case of a fire alarm going off? How many of you have a permanent building? Yeah, see, we operate, we're going on our 8th year, or we're finishing up our 8th year. We've purchased property, but we do not have our own building. We meet in a private church school and then have offices. So we have a little bit of a different setup than most people. So we have to operate within that facility. How many of you have benevolence when people show up that need help? Most churches do. And how do you handle benevolence? Do people ever come in that are maybe not there for the right reasons? They're there to just try to get money or funding or some kind of help when they don't really need it. Have you set up procedures for how you would handle that? How many of you have found that you've given out money and then or helped and then found out it wasn't a legitimate concern? Yeah, I have. I don't feel bad about it. I did due diligence, but sometimes you can't know. But you can do what you can do. It's the money and the funds that God has blessed you with. We need to be good stewards of it. So a benevolence plan. Counseling situations. How many of you counsel at your church? People come in needing counseling. How many of those counseling sessions have been hard, where people are dealing with huge concerns? Have you ever had somebody threaten suicide or tell you that they're thinking about it? These things come up. Counseling sessions can go south. Robberies and theft. It is a concern. How do you handle your tithes and offerings? How do you get them from the church to the bank? Have people ever been robbed? Yes, all across the United States. Theft or burglary. At one of the churches where we served, probably a 30-member choir. During the church service, people came in, went through every purse, took out all the credit cards, all the cash, anything available during the service while the choir was there. I wasn't in the choir that week, so I get a pass. Child custody issues. Have you set up a system to protect the children while they're there in the nursery or in the children's group? Can anybody walk in and the child recognize them as their parent and say, I want to go with them? But you find out later that they have zero custody. What have you done to set up to protect? Sex crimes. I'm sorry that we have to even talk about that at a church, but can that happen? Are children running around in places that are outside of the view of their parents or of church workers? How many times have you found people running down the hall or people in secluded areas? Have you walked your property and found out where could those things take place and how we can monitor it? So you need to be thinking about it. Missing children. The children ever run off and the parent goes, "Where's Johnny?" How do you handle that? Do you have something set up for that, or does everybody just run around and look to find that child? We're out in a rural area. They could easily be out in the woods. Disturbances among members or guests. Have you ever had that happen? Where a disturbance takes place, they bring the problem they have at home to church with them. Yeah, we've had that on more than one occasion. Persons with mental illness. How many of you have connections with people maybe that are homeless, that live in your area? We were in a downtown area where I first served, and bus station nearby, the release point for prisons in Texas was next door. So we had a lot of people coming up that had emotional problems and needed help. And it's some tough ministry. Ministry's messy, right? But do you have a way of handling and getting people funneled to where they can get help? What about active shooters? That's what we mostly think about now, don't we? It is so sad to say, and I'm so sorry we have to think that way. Growing up, I never, ever thought about it. My dad was a policeman. He never would have thought about it. And to be honest with you, it was the one place I could go during the week that I didn't have to be armed. It was such a joy to be at my church. But now, it's not that way, is it? In the next session, we're going to talk strictly about what happens and how you try to take care of that if it does happen. It's a rare occurrence, praise God. But when it happens, we need to have something set up in order to at least mitigate the set of circumstances, don't we? All right? Take some time, not very long, just as you go. I want you to, from 0 to 5, 0 meaning I have zero plan. We have not talked about it, didn't know that was a problem. We have no plan in place at our church to handle one of these issues. And a 5 would be, I feel completely confident with the plan we already have set up. And so somewhere in between would be the others. So take time and just write that in as quickly as you can. Do a self-evaluation. I like that. Call 911. That's a 1. You're right. That's that's a plan. It's part of the plan, right? Yeah, it's part of just about most of those plans. 911's good. Yeah. The great thing that we have now are cell phones, and just about everybody's going to start calling 911 when something goes down. Dispatch will blow up. How are we doing? We're getting close. There's a place to total it at the bottom. If you have a perfect score, have a great day, go to the next session because you don't need to be here. In fact, I need to talk to you because I can't say that we have probably a 55. How many of you feel, and you don't have to raise your hand, and we're not going to ask you your score. It's for you. It's a tool. That's not here to embarrass you, but how many of you don't feel like you have all these issues addressed the way you should? Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Good, you're in the right place because we're going to talk about it. Most of the schools that I've been to would be, I've had 4 days of training. It was wonderful, and they go into great detail. I've had others that are a day. So we're going to try to consolidate that into this time and give you as much as possible within the hour that we have. Today, what I want to do is 3 crucial points. Your church is vulnerable on at least some of this. You just saw that. And that's okay. Your church needs a plan. And your church needs a team in order to formulate that plan. Do any of you have police background? Security? Military? Military, good. That puts you a step up. You have some knowledge of what you're looking for and how to go about doing that. So if you don't have that, where do you go to get it? And that's what we're going to be talking about. To start off, preparing a team. Your church should have a security plan to address each of these security issues that we talked about. Resources available for a planning team. Churches primarily, and that's what Ricky and Dale talk about as being bivocational. They operate off of, Ricky said, volunteers. How many of you have to rely on volunteers at your church to get things done? Yeah, it's crucial. The same thing here. If you have these human resources within your church, use them. There's several reasons. One is they're close by. Second, they may want to be using something that they already have a gift for and a talent for and experience doing, and they're just looking. Where if you have a police officer in your church, they may not feel comfortable teaching, or they may not feel comfortable being in the praise band, but they're waiting to go, yeah, I'll do security. I'm here. I'll love to be a part of that. Now let me say this about police officers and paramedics and medical professionals. Sometimes when you approach them and ask them, would you do this? They'll tell you, please no, because this is the one place that I can come. I have never had that response from people within our church, but I could see that happening. And please, at that point, don't push it. Tell them, hey, I understand, because that's the one safety place they feel. Do you know if you have, well, let's start with police officers. Do you have any police officers that attend your church? You think of it? You see, we're blessed. We have a good number of policemen that go to our church, and so they make up our security team. We're meeting this week to talk about different issues and what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. But I'm blessed because I can just say you, and you, because they're a great resource and they're willing to serve. Why would you think they would be where you would go? One, because of experience, but two, they can be armed, they can make arrests. I'm not paying any of them. They're all volunteers. If you don't have police officers in your church, why not? Do you have an outreach ministry? How many of you have a police station close by your church? Sheriff's office, feds, state police, DPS is right over here. Substations close by. Please, if you have any time left or resources, reach out to your police officers and your firemen, your paramedics. They desperately need you. Many need you on a weekly basis. How do you go about reaching out? Some need chaplains. Some departments don't have police chaplains assigned. Some depend on volunteers. It may be that if you have a policeman or policewoman in your church, they could do that, or retired. How many of you would know if you had retired law enforcement people in your church? They may be looking for a place to serve. You may not be able to do it because you're tied up on so many different things. One way we go about it, besides I do chaplaincy work there, is we just show up and bring snacks. Sometimes bottled water. They get hot. They wear the Kevlar all the time. They're in dark uniforms. Houston is a really cool place most of the year, right? No, it's one of the most humid places in North America, right? So they're out in the concrete for a couple of hours doing a wreck. They need water. So you talk and you ask permission to do it. You just don't show up. But start that ministry. One, because it's the right thing to do. Two is because they are well connected within the same area that you're trying to reach. Who has better knowledge of what's going on in the community? They're out 24/7. And a lot of them can tell you where there are needs within your community. But this may sound selfish, but you need them in your church because they do have that expertise. So if you're looking at security from active shooters to disturbances, it's great to have police officers. What about medical emergencies? Do any of you have firemen, paramedics, doctors, nurses? Yeah, ER staff is fantastic to have. If you have an ER nurse there, wonderful. They know what they're doing, and they're very well informed and practiced at what they're doing. Can you reach out to hospitals? Yeah. A lot of the hospitals around here would have chaplains. They're a direct connection to tell you what you can and can't do to serve the staff at the hospital, to reach them. Do all police officers, firemen, paramedics, nurses, doctors, do they all know Christ? No. It's a wonderful place to do ministry. Who are police officers? You have city police, deputy sheriffs, precinct constables, state police officers, federal officers, military police, and people like me, retired. Some retired officers, they hold my commission at our local agency, so I have to go through all the training each year and keep up with it. I'm not on the streets other than when I ride with the officers. But there are retired police officers that are still commissioned. Firefighters. You have local firefighters, state fire marshals, paramedics, private sector fire personnel. Who would that be? Or any of where?
Volunteer firefighters.
Volunteer firefighter. In many areas, in fact, in our area, they make up the majority of the firefighting force. Are any of you located near chemical plants or large manufacturing areas? Yeah, they have their own private, they pay them to work there. And they are professional firefighters. They may not work for the city, but they are professional and they know what they're doing. Medical personnel, physicians, nurses, paramedics. The military would be Navy corpsmen, medics, and retired professionals. What about professional? People that you wouldn't have within your church, but that are outside the church, but are there to help you set up a security plan. Let's look at it. The local police community resource officer. So let's say you have no human assets in your church that you're aware of as far as police or paramedics or medical or fire. What do you do? You can reach out to your government officials. So one would be the community resource officer from your local police department or sheriff's office. They have people that's what they do full time. We have that in Huntsville. It's not a huge department, but they make sure that takes place. So for the most part, you're going to find them there, and they want to help you. So if you called and said, can I talk to you? And I want you to talk to me about security at my church. What can I do? Can you help me with that? And what's the worst thing they can tell you? No, we don't have time, we can't do it. I doubt that's what's going to take place. You're probably going to get a very positive response because they want to do that kind of work. Wouldn't they rather know that you're secure and be able to connect with you? It saves them a lot of work in the long run. And again, is that not another person that you know now at the police department or the sheriff's office or the constable's office within your area? Fire prevention officers, that's what they do. They want to come and talk to you about your place. Have you ever had them come in and do a walkthrough where you worship, where your classrooms are located? Hospital community outreach personnel, they're there too. They want to be there for you, and they can give you the resources that they have. The connections that you can make with them are wonderful. Medical emergencies are going to be the most common security issues you have. Do you have a defibrillator at your location? Do you know how to use it? Do more than just you know how to use it? What do you do to, is it just we depend on, again, 911? Yeah, that's appropriate, and we need to get 911 en route in some cases. But who else do you have there, and what other parts of your plan do you have set up? Paid security professionals. Do you have a large budget for security? Do you have any budget for security?
You stop after the budget.
Yeah, no budget. I like that. We do organic church too, so we know about no budget. I would have been shocked if somebody said, yes, we have a very large, or any budget. To be honest, we don't have a budget for it at all. How many of you would have security cameras at your location? If you're blessed, that's awesome.
Right, I'm sorry. Right after we've been robbed.
Yeah, you had to go there, right?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be a part, we're eventually going to start building a building, and that's going to be something we have to think about, right? If you have that wherewithal to be able and have been blessed, that's wonderful. Have you ever thought about these issues? They come up before. How can we set up a team of individuals to help us form a security plan? If you have no knowledge of it or no expertise in it, but you can find volunteers inside or outside the church, get after it. If you can pay for maybe a security officer to be there, somebody that's wearing a uniform security, that is wonderful. At least check it out and see what the cost is. Do you have any idea how much it would cost? They pretty much have off-duty fees that they know what they're going to charge you. They can tell you. If you want somebody, and they'll tell you the amount of hours that you have to rent them for or have them there. Would they be a deterrence, do you think? If they were standing there, walking in the parking lot? That's something you may want to think. One thing about your security, you don't want it to affect the what? The mission of your church. We can develop a security team and plan to where we can make you pretty secure from most attacks. Now, would it harm the mission of the church?
What's the going rate for paid personnel?
I don't know. In Harris County, and you would have to check with your local agencies and just ask. They'll be willing to tell you. Usually there's somebody that coordinates that for them, and they're fairly reasonable. If you have something set up in place, would you feel better during the time you're at your church? There'd be some, I don't know about y'all, but I'm kind of the world's worst. I'm not good at greeting people and making eye contact. I have to really work at it. Instead of going, hey, I'm Brother Jerry, we're so glad you're here, I'm going, what's he got on his waistband? It's just something I do. I've really had to struggle with it. But you have people that you want them there to do that kind of work. What about volunteers within the church? Let's think about it. Turn to page 3. After identifying human assets inside and outside the church, invite them to be a part of the security planning team. Ask them to develop a security plan addressing each of the security concerns that we have discussed. You will need to identify someone who will take on the responsibility to head the planning team and to implement the security plan. It is important that someone on church staff be a part of this planning team in order to assure that the security plan does not violate the mission of the church. Again, I can have a metal detector on the front door. We can pad people down just like when I go into prison every week. I get a complete pat down, everything out of your pockets. You've got to take your rings off, your belt. We can do that to get people in the church, but is that going to affect the mission of your church? Yeah, unless they're really hyper about being secure, that people aren't coming back. So you have to say, from a pastor's standpoint, I want security, I want a plan, but I don't want it to affect why we're here in the first place. It would be harmful. I'll give you an instance. My pastor, right before he went up to preach, the praise band was going on, and I'm standing there by him, and he turned to him and he goes, there's a guy out in the area that it's kind of our greeting area, but it's really the cafeteria for the school. And he is acting strange. I've never seen him before. Just his body language and the way he's moving and his eyes, he's going back and forth and he looks confused. Can you go check him out? I went, sure. And he goes, by the way, what do you call that shiny stuff on Christmas trees? And I went, tinsel? And he went, yeah, that's it. So I thought, well, there's a guy out here wearing tinsel. I need to go check him out, right? So I go out there, and the guy's not wearing tinsel, but he's looking at the bathroom area, and then he would turn to the door leading to the hallway to the children's area. And he'd get like this, and he'd move back and forth. He'd stare back at that door, and he'd look. So I'm a little concerned at that point. I don't know what he's up to. So I start locking the doors, which is part of our security practice. So once the children are moved into that area, we lock it down. You have to go through the sanctuary to get to it, the gym, that's our sanctuary. And we have that controlled. So when I go to lock that door, he goes, you're not locking that door, are you? Well, I went from pastor to police at that point and went, why do you want to know? And he goes, because my child's in the bathroom with my wife and I'm trying to get her down the hallway. Perfectly great father, had done nothing wrong. His body language was, I'm frustrated because we didn't get off on time. Music's already started. My wife won't get out of the bathroom. I told her to get down here. His mother comes out, who I know. He's visiting from out of town. So I apologize. They go, no, we totally get it. We want it to be secure. But if I would have turned around and put him on the wall, that would have been a problem, right? He may never come back. So as a lead pastor, or if you're responsible, please don't let it affect the mission of your church. We're there to do what? To make disciples. And you can't make disciples if they don't want to show back up, because security is too much in their face. So it has to blend in. And again, as senior pastor, you're kind of responsible for knowing what? Just about everything that goes on there, because that's where they're going to come. If you're on staff, you need to be able to answer questions about the security team and plan at your church. Once a security planning team has been formulated, a security plan, they usually transition into the security team that implements the plan. Some members of the initial team may opt out of the actual security team due to work schedules or other concerns. They may be able to sit down and be a part of that original planning team, but then they don't feel, because of their schedule, that they can be a part. Some officers don't get to be able to come to church. Why? Because they're working, or they work the night before. Most Saturday nights in my life, I worked till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and church was tough. We had made a commitment early on in our lives that we were going to be a part of church, and it was a struggle when you're dead tired. Would they be a good member of your security team with 2 hours sleep? Probably not. You don't want them making decisions at that time, right? So be thankful that they were a part, but don't expect everyone to be on board with it. So what does your security plan look like? Here's how you go about developing a security plan. And if you have questions, please ask. We have some time to answer quick ones. Just as every church is unique, each church security plan would be unique based on the church building and property, the physical location within the community, and ministries of the church. Think about different churches. I mean, there are a myriad of different locations within Harris County. Are you all located within Harris County? Yeah. Harris County is not unique at all. It's not diverse, right? It's one of the most diverse places on the planet. In fact, it's either number 1 or 2 as far as diversity in the United States. With New York, we kind of go back and forth. So churches are going to be that way too. Each one is going to have a different type of security plan set up. It'll be unique to you. What works at our church would be completely different probably than one that was a more traditional church that meets in a building at a facility. How many of you have outbuildings to your church? Portable buildings where you meet? Yeah. Different security concerns, right? How many of you have education at your church on Sunday morning compared to like what we do? We have some of that, but most of it's in houses around the community during the week. Completely different. Have you ever walked your premises to find if there are blind spots where things could go on that you wouldn't want going on? Yeah, do that. Who would be a great person to walk around with you during that? Police officer, a fireman, one of the people that are outside the church that you can invite in that would give you expertise. You're not expected to know everything. Common sense dictates some of it. You know that's not a good place. So if you found a blind spot, what would be a good way to handle it? You can't just do away with it normally unless you have some building fund and you can rebuild it. Cameras would be wonderful if they're monitored during the service and recorded.
We have inside and outside,
Oh, that's fantastic.
north, south, east, and west.
I'm going to come to your church. What else? Can volunteers be there? Yeah, it doesn't have to be a security officer. It can be just a deacon, a church member, somebody standing there. They can be part of the greeting team, but people know you can't just stop there.
Yeah, some of our ushers, sometimes they go outside and check around the church,
Yeah,
especially the children.
ushers are greeting teams. Some churches have, my wife's on our greeting team. She's not somebody that looks at waistbands, and she's an actual greeter. But greeters can be a huge part, or ushers of your security, if they've been trained to be able to tell, and we're going to talk about it. If you're, how many of you are located in a downtown urban setting? Anybody? What about an area that you would have a lot of homeless people? Yeah. What about an area where we were next door to the prison where they released people, and we ministered to those folks that had been released and their families. So we had contact with people that had a lot of issues that we needed to help with. Very few times it came down to security, but it did sometimes. How many of you reach out to people that have needs and they come to your church, or they just show up? And sometimes they bring security issues with them. How many of you have outreaches to people that are addicted? We do. Can that be messy security-wise? Sure. Somebody's coming off drugs, they've got a physical, emotional, maybe spiritual problem, and they need help. And we can't just push them away because they need help, right? Because that's what we're called to do. But we have sometimes security issues. We talked about counseling earlier. You got to think about where you're counseling. I knew of a church, one of my family members took their child for church school, I think 3 times a week. Pastor was counseling a man who had lost his mother, and he was living with her, and he decided he wanted to commit suicide. You have a difficult situation right there where you have what? Children. And they were being released at the time. The police showed up. It was a hard situation. You have to think about your location, where it is in the community, what it looks like, the ministries that you have. Is church security only about what happens on Sunday morning? No, it's all the time. If you have a youth ministry and you send your youth on a trip, let's say with a bus, just a local trip to do ministry, do you have to think about security for them? I mean, you don't have to have armed security there all the time, but you need to think about, I'm going out into the world with these kids, I need to think about their security. At least have enough parents. And what is our church, how committed are we to their safety? Number 2, every church security plan must not focus on Sunday mornings, but on other aspects of the life of your church. Take some time right now, just in your mind, to run down where outside the church are we. Like I said, we meet in local, during the week, we don't have the facilities, and even if we build, we won't have education or Bible study there. It'll be in life groups out in the community. Are they concerned about security, where they meet? It's something to think about. Church security plans should train church members and key volunteers. Here are just a few. The pastoral staff, nursery and Sunday school workers, office personnel, ushers, greeters, parking team, and security officers. Let's think about why they're important. You mentioned about ushers and greeters. Do you have people in your parking lot that are greeting people? How many of you? Just to get an idea. Yeah, we have that. What could they ascertain about something going wrong and let us know on the security staff? What could they see before anyone ever got into the place?
Suspicious cars driving through.
Yeah, suspicious cars. Suspicious actions by people. The thing about, we don't ask our people to profile. Profiling for police officers is illegal. It's also ineffective. It's also a waste of time. I don't look at people, I look at their actions. What are they up to? And that's what you're talking about, something that they keep driving by slowly in the parking lot. They are looking at inside other cars. What can you see if you're walking around greeting people and you look into a car and you see, let's say, a ski mask? In Houston? I mean, maybe, 1 month out of the year, sometime. I don't see it happening too often. Yeah, so, well, you can rationalize that away, can't you? Well, they probably just got back from the Rockies and blah, blah. People will do that. But if you've trained them to, if you see something, you come and tell somebody on the security team immediately. A lot of times on active shooters, and we're going to talk about that later, they have ammunition out in the open. They're not planning on this ending well. In fact, they know when it's going to end. They've already decided. So anytime you see weapons or ammunition or what else? What do they wear sometimes? Kevlar. Yeah, they've got their bulletproof vest. They may have several of them. They may hope to be able to make it back to the car to reload to go back in. So if they see that, but active shooters are not that common. What else could they see? I'm having a family disturbance with my wife, who we've been at it all week. We haven't. I'm just using her as an example. And we get out of the car arguing, or I grab her and try to pull her back into the car, and she pulls away and she takes the kids with them. Does somebody need to know that on the security team? Yeah. You bet. We need to get that addressed. What if somebody's pulled back into a vehicle? Or you can hear them in the car, and then when they get out, it's, "Hi, how are you?" Mm-hmm. Right? What about the way somebody would walk? Am I armed right now? You don't think? But at least you're bold enough to say it. I appreciate that. And you're right, I'm not. But I sure could be, and you wouldn't know it. I could have a small pistol that can do a lot of damage really quickly. And people that have pistols in their pockets, unless they're well trained, you know what that looks like. The way they move, the way they walk. What am I doing right now?
Hands in pocket.
Yeah. I could have a 9mm in my hand and you wouldn't be able to know it. But what am I going to do? I'm going to try to keep my hands here. Why?
Close to your weapon.
Yeah, I'm close to my weapon. I can draw my weapon. That's why I never ask anybody on the street, take your hands out of your pockets. You just said, draw down on me. I'm going to take your hands out of your pocket. Don't take your hands out of your pockets, and then I'm going to take them out. How do you get somebody's hands out of your pockets if you're at a church? Hey, how are you? The average male will do exactly that, even if they have it, even if they're thinking, why? It's our habit. But if they go, what did that just tell you? Either have something, a skin rash, and I don't want to show it, more than likely what? I'm protecting something. Or what if I go like this? You give me your hand, like you want to greet me? Hey, how you doing? All right? Or they can be left-handed too. We have to think about there's a lot of different things that go through. But if somebody acts that way, shouldn't a greeter do what? Feel free to go find somebody on the security team and let them know. Do not bypass it. How do ushers and greeters know these things? You have to educate them. You have to have meetings with them and talk about it. This is why you're here. You're here because of the mission of the church. Why did you put them out there originally? Not for your first line of defense, but your first line of, this is who we are here at my church. We love you. We're glad you're here. We want you to hear about Jesus. Come back. And then who is the first person they see? Oh, this wonderful smiling face in the parking lot that's greeting me, if they're also looking at everything about me, so that they can come and make this a secure place. Do people want to come back to a place where they feel secure? Yeah, they want to be warmly welcomed, feel a part of the mission, and think it's worthwhile to them, but they also want to think that their children are secure, that they're secure, that senior adults can come there, that it's accessible. Why should the pastoral staff be part of the security?
A lot of times we know some of the people that are coming in that others won't know.
You're the best source of intel, especially as senior pastors, because you've done the counseling during the week. You know the family disturbances that are going on, the divorces that are taking place, because divorce never happens, right, within our churches. And all divorces are very amicable and nice and sweet, right? No. Some are better than others, but there's a lot of potential for violence. And if you already know that going into it, you need to tell me if I'm the head of security. It's just an issue, just want to make you aware of it. You also know you have usually the best idea of who people are because you've gone out and met them. How many of you are great with names? God bless y'all. I'm horrible. I know faces. I can remember. Thank you. We need to form a group, all right? Get some support going. I can remember faces from way back, but I cannot. I'm horrible. And I confess it to people so they're not offended. It's not just you. I love you, but I struggle with it. But there are people in the church that are really good at that. We have people on our staff I go to them and go, who is that? What are they? And they give me the name immediately and tell me their whole circumstance. You need those people on the staff especially involved. Our women's minister, and she runs our office, she is my go-to person. And we're close friends, but she'll go, okay. And then she'll spill it and tell me who they are. She is a wonderful part of the security team. I want us to look at empowering our people, especially our volunteers, to feel free to come and talk and say, I have a concern. We had one that a man walked in. He was probably in his 30s. He had a backpack on, and he kept it close. He would, when he got to his chair, he put it down and put it right up under his chair, but he would reach down and feel it constantly. So people in the church came up and said, this guy's different. We don't know him. I already knew who he was and why he was there. He came up to me and told me. And he was staying at a place that he didn't want to leave his backpack because he had his laptop in it and some other things because he didn't want them to be stolen. That's why he was very protective. It's really all he had on the planet. That was his whole world. So he kept it there. And during the service, he got up real quick, and when he did, you could see people all over the service go. Well, we already had security close by just to know what he was doing and where he was. He was just going to the bathroom. He took his backpack with him. Well, there's security personnel, going like that. Well, we need to do that. He came back several times before we moved, and I got to share Christ with him, and it was a good thing. You have to be prepared, but again, you don't affect the mission of the church, so don't have the usher tackle someone to find out what's in the backpack. That's overkill. That's too much on the security. So you need to talk to them as well as staff. What about office personnel? How many of you have a receptionist or a secretary or someone who is stationed there? How vulnerable are they?
Very.
They're the ones I really am concerned about, because we leave them up there and they're the first line during the week when people show up. What have you done to protect them? How have you trained them? What do they look for in people? They can be your first line at least during the week. Have we had church violence during the week around the United States? You bet. A lot of times they're after pastors. So it is something you need to be considerate of, especially that person that you have out front, and talk to them about security. Parking team would be, if you're blessed to have parking problems, that's a good thing, but there's somebody else you need to bring in to the security team. Now, am I saying arm all these people? No, that's not it. You don't want people being thrown down on out in the parking lot. Again, it goes against your mission. Security officers, whether you hire private security or police officers who are off duty, they need to know the mission of the church too, and they'll tell you what they're willing to do in order to blend in with your mission. They don't want to cause you problems. They want to be there to help, but just to be there for security. But they need to be freed up. Number 4, setting up clear lines and methods of communication are critical to a workable security plan. You can have the best plan set up, but if people aren't brought into it and trained routinely to where you keep it fresh, they're not going to remember the plan. How many times do people, they volunteer to be on, let's say, the parking team or the ushers, but they're not there in 6 months? She got transferred. She's no longer a member of your church. So now somebody else came in. They have no clue, because people don't leave the church, do they? And we don't have new people coming in? No, it's a constant. So routine training. Now, you don't have to do it every month. We try to do it with our security team once a quarter. We have not always made that, but we try to. And we're going to try to do it. I know one of the shortfalls we have is doing just what I'm about to talk about, is to continuing education with the greeters, with the people out front, that they need to be better trained. So keep that as a huge part of it. Now, if they see something, how do they know to report it? So you saw this disturbance out in the parking lot. Who do they normally run to? If you have no, yeah, they're going to staff. So if the staff has no clue what to do with security, again, they need to be aware, right? Usually if they can, they'll grab the senior pastor, because that's the go-to guy. But it'll be any staff member. They need to know where to go with it. There needs to be a chain of command, literally. In your church, there needs to be one person that is in charge of security. In our case, it's me, because I come from a law enforcement background and I'm on staff, so I have both of it going on. But you may not have that. You need to find somebody, whether they're on your staff or not, that will be the go-to person to make those decisions, especially if the senior pastor may not be there. They may not be available. They may not be in a location where they're easily reached, because we get sidetracked, don't we, during the week or during the day. How do they communicate? What's the fastest way to get the information to somebody?
Text.
Text. Cell phones, smartphones, right? They're great for security. As long as they know who to call and they have the number available, right? How many of you do that? Everybody knows your number that's involved in security, and they can get a hold of you. All the nursery workers, all the children's workers, do they have a central number they can call? And they need more than one, because what if they can't reach the first one?
You can set up groups where you send one text that goes to.
Texting's great. I text more than anything. Sally knows, because she'll send me emails for several years and then realize that doesn't work for me as well, because I check them. My wife tells me that you have an email. But you text me, I'll get back to you immediately. And I do group texts all the time. It's very effective. Now, they have to be aware that they need to be looking for that too, right? Because you can also sit there and let text build up because you're in a conversation, you're doing something important, and they're texting you that something bad's happening. But if I get a phone call from them, and it's one of my nursery workers, heading right there. I'm getting security over there immediately, because they're not doing that for fun. There's no reason to call me other than something that they need help on right then. What about a greeter? A greeter should be able to call you and say, you know, man, I've got this, I just saw this. But they need to also always know, we want the phone call. Never go back to them and go, well, that was, I don't know what you were thinking, that was just something innocent, and don't ever do that. People have a hard enough time, even in law enforcement, it's easy, the brain will try to jump quickly to, there's an explanation for that behavior. That's why they tell you in airports, if there's anything at all, please tell us, right? After 9/11 especially. Don't rationalize it away. Oh, they were just kidding. Or he just came back from hunting. That's why we have ammunition everywhere. No, it's a semi-automatic weapon, and they're going to bring it into the church. But you rationalize that away. Please tell people don't. They don't need to confront them. Let us do that. Let the team do it. In most cases. Very few would they not be required to do that, to call someone. How else can you get the word out?
Keywords.
We have radios.
Radios. Do you have radios at your church? Yeah. Yeah, and do they have batteries that are charged? Right? There's nothing worse than I'm so old, when I got into law enforcement, they were new. That was a new thing. And they were huge. They were big Motorola's. They were, I mean, you could throw them and they wouldn't break. I mean, they were just solid metal. And not that I threw them at anybody. I don't want to get the, but they were heavy on your hip. But now they're just so wonderful. You can just have a little clip here and talk. Would that deter somebody from coming to your church? Most people not. I wouldn't think. I mean, it could, but I wouldn't see that it would be that much of a harm to reaching people. But what's so good about it? Everybody can hear it all at once. We can put out lockdown messages. You have to be able to lock your church down. Can you do that right now? Can your nursery worker, your youth, can they be locked down? If not, you really need to address that. Can they be locked down safely where in case of a fire they could get out? You need to address that also. We're locked in. Can a person come up and say, we're the police, it's okay, and they just open the door? Yeah, there needs to be some method of saying, no, pastor's saying it's clear, we're done. You can come out now. We'll talk about a little more of that in the second session. What about PA systems? Does anybody still have PA systems? Yeah, it's becoming more and more where you don't need them, but if you do and have access to them, you can use PA systems. What normally happens when somebody sees something and they want to tell, they're going to send somebody to do it, right? Or they're going to run to do it. I'm going to leave the parking lot, you stay here, keep an eye on them, and I'm going to go find the security. Well, if they're not available, if they have to wander all around your facility to find, what happens? That intelligence that they are trying to bring you is old by the time you have it. That person's moved. That car is gone. So we need to have a person that is in one place that they know, my brother's there, I know exactly where to go find him. He's here. And I can come tell you. And now you can address it. Cell phones to me right now are the best. You can group text, you can call, you can get the information out to everybody that needs to know quickly. Sometimes in a panic, when they see something like that, they'll forget that that's an option. And they will still go. So you kind of need to have somebody, in fact, not kind of, you need to have somebody available. We try to have someone near the front so that they can go to it, because that's where our people come in and out. An effective church security plan should bring the appropriate resources to the security problem quickly. Clear lines of communication within the church will facilitate this, as well as bring outside assistance. If something goes down in the church that everybody in that area knows is a security problem, what happens?
Chaos.
Chaos is the first thing, right? But you'll be surprised how quickly people bring out those smartphones and they start dialing what? 911. At another church where I served during a Christmas event, there were hundreds of people from the community there. Someone that we'd been working with decided to disrupt the entire thing by running on the pews. Literally got up and ran from pew to pew, right through the middle. 911 blew up, right? Because this is an obvious security concern. Well, we took care of that, and he was arrested, and there was not a problem. But you have to be able to have a way not only of them bringing their concerns to you, but you getting your concerns out to law enforcement. By the time we had him outside, there were already units there waiting on him. So it was seamless. I wouldn't be as worried about people or about us having a way of contacting, because people normally do. But during the chaos that you mentioned, people on staff and security need to remember they need to get people there. And so have somebody that's at least designated to do that. That this is who the church is and we're sending this out. Because people may not do it. It could happen. What's the average response time that you think to something major like that?
12 minutes.
Y'all think that sounds right? Thank you for speaking up. I don't know here, right? Do you know from time to time? They're going to get there as fast as they can to something, especially that sounds like it may have the potential for violence. They're going to try everything they can. They may be tied up on what? major accident, a shooting. So they have to pull out of what they're doing to come to you, and they have to marshal their resources to get to you. And that can seem like a long time. But you need to make that phone call to get them there as fast as they can. It may turn out not to be anything, but wouldn't they rather that? I guarantee as a responding officer, I'd rather get there and you go, it wasn't anything. It turned out okay, he's fine, wasn't a bad deal. Instead of, I'm sorry we called. You know, you can apologize, but they're going, no problem, there's no paperwork. I don't have to, didn't have to hurt anybody, it was all good. So they would rather get that phone call. And 99% of the time, okay? I wanted more than anything today for you to realize the need for security, and it's not just for active shooters or violence. There's a myriad of things that we need to be thinking about. Are we responsible for what goes on within the flock? Yeah, scripturally, I think we can all turn to them and say that we are responsible. Can you take care of everything? Absolutely not. You can't guard against all eventualities, but you can be prepared. You can have a plan set in place. You can work the plan. One thing is from staff, if you have somebody that's in charge of security, let them know that you're going to be talking to them and asking them questions about how's it going. They need accountability too. You still are responsible for that flock. And if you have a concern that this is getting a little too much, they need to address that. If it's not enough, in your estimation, let them explain why we're doing it this way. You may be educated about it. They may go, no, we have a reason we're doing it that way. You may not have a clue. But they know the best way, and they're going to tell you why they're doing it. Can you still say, sure. Should you have a written plan? Why is writing good?
Documentation.
Yeah, it's documentation of this is what we're shooting for. We need to implement it. But you can write it down all day long and go, we have a plan. Right? How many of you have outreach plans for your church? And then you find out later that didn't happen that way. Or we started this big drive to do something and it just kind of went after a while. Same thing with security. It needs to be addressed periodically and reevaluated, reassessed. We're going to, like I said, move into a building at some point. Are we going to have to look at our security plan differently? Yeah. As we build a building, should we look at how we do security? Yeah. It's a huge part of it, the facility. I wanted you to feel vulnerable, but I don't want you to feel despair about it. I mean, we still have to function in a hurting world. That's what we're supposed to do, right? That's our job. We're to go out and make disciples who make disciples. Well, it's messy, and it's sometimes very confusing and complicated, and it can be dangerous. It just is. So as shepherds, that's our job to try to mitigate those circumstances. We're not going to tell people to stay here and let's be completely guarded and protected. No, we want them out and about. We want people coming in. But we want to do it as safely as possible. So today I just wanted you to have those thoughts. What do I need to do to set up a team, whether it's inside or outside of the church, to bring in resources? And then once we have the team, let them develop a plan, and then take that plan and put it to action. Okay? Do you have any questions? I think we have a few minutes.
Just I guess, question, maybe point of information. We've started one a while back, and we're advised a little later to not call it a security team. In fact, told us to, because we even ordered, we have vests that said security on the back and everything, and we were told we had to put those away. Just because we're not trained as security officers, and that puts us in liability if we're identified that way. So do you have any thoughts on that? Or, I mean, that's something that I definitely would recommend for other teams that are just starting, but if you think any differently.
I agree with that. And if you walked in, this came up when the open carry law passed. I don't do it because I don't want people to know. That's just saying, come and hurt me first, take my weapon and use it. I don't agree with that. Now for an armed, uniformed police officer, that's fine, that's appropriate. But if you walk into our service, you won't know who the security officers are. The church people do. But one thing we don't want is people to come in and gather intelligence about where my people are sitting on the security team. I want them to be able to respond and you not know where it's coming from. So I don't put security, we don't wear any kind of identification like that. They have badges. Again, we're blessed because we have so many police officers. And please, let me stress that to you. If you're not reaching out to your local substation or DPS, we reach out there, dispatchers. You talk about who knows what's going on in your community? Those people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's holding up pray for the police that you can get here in Houston. Our police department purchases them, and we have each person in our church has an officer in our community. All the officers in every agency are being prayed for daily by one person. And then we'll re-up that in May to get in the new people so that we don't lose this one-on-one praying. You talk about make a difference in their lives. Let them know that you're praying for them. I promise you that has a whole lot of effect on officers or your firemen or your paramedics. And I'm not just saying that because I come from a first responder background, but if you go out to the scenes that they have to go out to, and they do it daily, and some are horrendous. They need your ministry. They need to know that Jesus loves them and is there for them, and they would want to serve and help. That's why they're there. They're not there for the money. I can promise you. They're there because they want to protect and serve. Are they perfect? No. Nobody is. Everybody makes mistakes. But they're there to help. And so we need to be, as the church, to be there for them. And I tell you what, it helps in your understanding of what they do and helping your people understand what they do. All right, the second session is making church security work when the unthinkable happens. Let me start off by saying right up front, the odds of this happening are few. It just doesn't occur that often. Even now, we think about it more because we have better reporting, and there's an increase in these incidents. But is it going to happen? Probably not. So let's take time to thank God that this is not a routine occurrence. We think about it as being routine, but it's truly not. It's more dangerous to drive down here this morning and back, right? But if it does occur, I want to be prepared. And you have to decide what you're willing to do as far as being willing to stop violence. If you have a problem with deadly force, then you need to think about why. And if that's part, there are people that would never use deadly force. They just wouldn't. That's their That's who they are. They don't believe in it. And I respect that. That's fine. But what we're going to talk about now is not only using deadly force, but also prevention. But mainly to mitigate what happens once something occurs. So if you've been fearful that this is something that's going to take place all the time, it just really doesn't. Everybody I've talked to, and if you look at the statistics, the amount of churches in the United States compared to what happens, but when they do, it just breaks your heart. I always think of Charleston. That one in particular, I don't know why, but it just stands out in my mind. At Emmanuel Church, I've looked at the people that they talk about that were lost. They're sweet, good people who were making disciples. I mean, they were doing what we're supposed to be doing. A church that's active in their community and in their state and in the nation. Having Bible study. I mean, they were vulnerable. But they were open to their mission, weren't they? They were accepting. They were being who we're to be. But we want to talk about what we can do to, at least if nothing else, make sure if this does take place that fewer people are harmed. Hopefully no one would be harmed, including the person. We're going to talk about why that part of it's not likely. Active shooter incidents are rare occurrences at church facilities. Here's an active shooter incidents breakdown. Single shooter with more than one firearm. Again, I asked if you knew if I was armed or not. You may not know that they are armed with more than one weapon. Are all weapons firearms? No, they're not. Daylight hours. Most of them occur in daylight in church shootings. Why?
And that's when people are there.
Yeah. Yeah, there are more people there. We have daycares, church schools, Celebrate Recovery, all kinds of missions, outreach. But most of our activity when we're in groups are during the daytime. Where we think of crime as mainly being something that happens at night, which is probably not true anyway. It's our preconceived notion. Most of them do take place in a building. They have a well-populated location. So they go to where we are. Why would that be? Why do they go where there are people? That's what they're there for. Yeah, they're looking for the most people in this area. Not always. Sometimes they're targeting somebody in the church. But then, and we'll look at that here and write down this list. Shootings seldom last over 2 to 3 minutes. Seems like a short time, right?
Getting shot at.
Yeah.
Right.
If let's say I had 2 9mm pistols, 2 40 caliber pistols, whatever you want to say for handguns, and I started shooting in this room, this isn't TV. It's loud. The results of what the shooting brings, most of you have never seen. My prayer is that most of you have never seen it. Some of you probably have. But it's devastating. And you can think, I'm going to react a certain way, but you don't know. You don't know. It would be incredibly different if you had an AK-47. Just the noise in this room, the firepower would be incredible. They bring this horror with them. They initially target specific people. Now remember, not always. These are not completely, it's just what's average. So if I come after, we have a senior pastor in here? Anybody? There we go. There's my target. Can't stand your doctrine. Hate it. I don't like your views on whatever. So I'm after you. Or you led my wife to Christ and now she's unhappy with the way I live. Right? So I'm getting you. Blap. That took a second. He's easily identifiable. I know how to find him. So if I'm after you, I may just come get you during the day when you're at the office. Set up an appointment with you. But I'm going to get you. But then what's going to happen to me? He's thought about it. Why don't I just take out Minister of Education, the guy that's in charge of ministries, the lady that works up front, or the man that works up front, or the children that are coming in for daycare? Why not? They may initially target somebody, but they're coming after other people. If targeted people are unavailable or killed, they'll just select them at random. So I show up and you're supposed to be there, but I've got all this stuff on. I'm going to have the party anyway. Because I'm here, I've already committed, right? So I'm not backing down. Will likely take their own life. Why is that?
Avoid arrest.
Avoid arrest. You think that's his biggest fear at this point? I mean, it might be. What else? Why would I do that? I've got all this stuff. I could still take out a lot more people. I can take out the responding officers possibly that come to get me, or the paramedics. Why would I go ahead and end it? Does that often happen? Yeah. I don't want you having control over me. I don't want Ron responding and taking over authority over me, control. I want control because I showed up to put control on you. I'm controlling this situation. A lot of times they're frustrated people. And this is the one instance they can say, I'm in charge. I'm even in charge of when I check out. And it always is so sad because there's no, it seems, justice. They're taking that away from you. No, you're not going to arrest me. And you were right in your answer because I don't want people judging me. I judged me. I took myself out, not you, and not the policeman. They're looking for victims, not defenders. Why show up at a church in the first place if I don't have a beef with that place or somebody in the place? You've heard the expression soft target. Most of the time you're viewed as a easy place to hit. Why? Because you've got a lot of people crammed into a small area. And you're welcoming. And you're loving. And you don't want to offend me. So I know this is an easy place to get to. Grudge or hatred towards Christian. Nobody in the world hates Christians, right? No. I mean, we know that going into it. In fact, scripturally, we're told ahead of time, right? He tells us, you know what's going to happen. It's true. So there are people who just hate you because you are who you claim to be. I'm a follower of Christ. We have people now, and it just breaks your heart every time you hear about people being martyred around the world. But it can happen here also. So they may just show up for that reason. Almost all incidents have significant pre-planning, which to me is just an opportunity. If they're there to gather intelligence about their target, they're at least there to be observed by your security. they may mess up. Now, they're going to be very cognizant of staying undercover and keeping a low profile. But watch for people that are not interacting. Some may be good at it. They may interact. Watch for people watching you. Watch for people watching a security team. If I'm going to arrest you on the street and I'm a police officer and you're doing this towards me and you're looking at my weapon and you're looking at what I have to defend myself, I've got a problem with you already because I know you're trying to hurt me. The same thing here. If I'm watching where the police are, if I'm watching where the security team would be, I'm trying to evaluate, is she on that security team? Is she the one? I'm trying to see if you're armed. They know, they're looking. Sometimes they'll case a place for a year. That's how far back they go. This stuff is pre-planned. They know what they're doing. They're setting the agenda. You're reacting. This is not the Old West. You remember, some of you are old enough to remember Gunsmoke? Yeah, Sheriff Matt Dillon, right? He would always wait till the other guy started drawing before he would draw his weapon. That can never occur. First of all, I can't outreact you. My job is to have mine out before you. I'm not going to wait. That's TV. So in this case, they determine when it's going to start unless you can stop it before then. So if he's there casing the place or she's there, can women do this? Let's don't be sexist. They can bring violence too, right?
Yes.
So we have to be on the lookout for them looking at us. Almost all incidents not resolved by on-duty personnel, police personnel. When we were in the last group, we talked about our plan is to call 911. Let's go ahead and do this now. Let me let you see what I just started it. 2 minutes looks like. I kind of know because I do planking and an exercise. I hate it. And I time it. It takes 2 minutes. And so I know exactly what 2 minutes looks like. Not so far. That's about half of it. Not even half. To save time, I'll stop it, but that's 1 minute. How much damage could I do in here? Yeah, 1 minute, or in 1 minute. What about in 2? I'm well trained. I can reload. I can take hits and reload. Have they not practiced? Have they not read up on it? You can go online and learn all about how to go about this. But it takes very little time. They already know how much time. They've got to where they can count it out in their head. They're counting. They know what about 2 minutes. Why do they think 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes? Why are they trying to end it before then? Police response. The average police response to something like this is 3 minutes. So if the average shooting lasts 2 to 3 minutes, what's the bad guy trying to do? Stop it, end it, get what he's going to do before police get there. Because they want the control. So we talk about first responders. If they're responding to it as fast as they can, they're doing their best to get there to you. But unless they happen to be on a traffic stop across the street, they're not there. Who really is the first responder? Whoever's there. So if you're at work and you're in the office and they come there, you're the first responder. The person working up front is the first responder. The youth guy coming across the street is the first responder. A good many of these instances, people intercede, and sometimes they're hurt, or sometimes they go to be with the Lord. But sometimes they end it. Because you saw what a minute looked like. Think how long it would be. People lose all track of time. When you talk to witnesses, they can't tell you how long. It sounded like forever. If you talk about to people in combat, if you talk to police officers, they can't give you a good idea often. Because it's such a horrendous thing. But if you know, if I'm there and it's happening, my hope is that people will intercede as fast as you can to take the power and control away from them. I came and sat with my wife one time. I thought this would be great, because normally I stand at the back when I'm not walking around. If I'm not preaching, I'm back there. Preaching's great because I move around when I preach, so I can move around and watch people. And it's not to see that they're paying attention. It's okay, what are they doing? I came and sat with her, and I just enjoyed myself. It was so great, and I listened to the sermon, and I was blessed. And afterwards I went, man, that was great. I hadn't got to do that in a long time. She says, I hated it. I hated every minute of it. No, what are you talking about? She goes, you ought to be back there where you're watching things. It was out of her comfort zone for me to be there, because she wants more eyes on it, because she's tactically smart. I appreciate that. She's been around it long enough. To get the idea that 911 is going to be there in time on an active shooter, they're going to do their very best. We also know that their response is going to be different than it was years ago. Used to, you would marshal your resources and then go in, but Columbine kind of changed the way people look at that from the police standpoint. That our job is to get in and at least engage. And they're better trained to engage now. But to count on it, it's not something you can do. You need to have something in place. Not all active shooters fall into this breakdown, and recently we found some changes, right? We talked about earlier in South Carolina. Did he stay after shooting? No. He was arrested, what, another state over? Because somebody was observant, and the police came and arrested him. What was his goal? Do you remember why he showed up there?
It was racial.
He wanted to start a racial war. That was his goal. He wasn't about control. He was doing one thing. That was his agenda. Now, it worked completely the opposite, because what he intended for evil, a lot of wonderful things took place after that. Praise God. But his idea, what about the shooting out in California where they came in, it wasn't a church shooting, but they came into his place of work when they were having a training. And they left and were found by the police in between, and there was a shootout, and they both died. And that was terrorism. So people now sometimes leave. If you look at what's happened in Europe, they're not all staying there, some leave. So you can't count on all this being true all the time. It doesn't all fall into categories real neatly. It's different. What are potential threats? Domestic disputes, counseling situations, community ministries, random street crime, racial hatred, hatred toward Christians in general, anger toward someone in the church, terrorism, and people who are emotionally disturbed. Let's break those down real quick a little more. Domestic disputes, why do they show up at churches? Because people do. One of the places people look for safety is their church. They will drive to their church when they're involved in something like this because they want to talk to what? Who? Minister. It may be their youth pastor, and they're trying to get to him because that's the only person they feel like they can talk to when they just left a violent situation, and violence just follows with them. And now he or she has to deal with that situation. It shows up Sunday mornings. Saturday night's one of the roughest times, right, for family disturbances. Sundays are bad because of football, you know, especially on holidays. I'm a football fan, so I get agitated when things don't go my way, right? Sunday's a day that you can see when families are all pushed in on holidays together. It's one of the most dangerous times because they bring all this stuff with them. And they'll show up at church. They'll show up at events.
Just got a question about that. If the pastor is counseling someone and they know the situation, sometimes they maybe they don't want to tell people about what's going on in this family's life, but we need to know this stuff here, that this woman or man, either one, had came in and they're having problems and the guy's already threatened her and all that, but they don't want to say anything. That should be something that the pastor should tell the security team, hey, I've been counseling this woman and there may be a problem with her husband. Or
And this may just be me, but I do this with counseling. I tell people up front, if you tell me something dangerous that you're contemplating or that could lead to something that's dangerous, I'm going to take action to protect you, your family, and this church. It may sometimes stop counseling, but I've never had that happen. I've never had somebody say, no, I'm not going to talk openly. Because if they tell me they're going to hurt themselves, we're going to get attention for them right then. Or if they tell me they're going to hurt somebody else or commit a felony or something along those lines, I'm running a meth lab. Not anymore. You know, where's that location? So no, I'm going to know up front before, and they're going to know it's fair. It's the only way you can do it, as far as I'm concerned. Counseling situations, we talked about that, but it's true, they can go south. They can not like what you're telling them, your stance on whatever you're talking about or what you're asking them to do. They may come in just to argue. And I know you know this, so it's part of what you've already done. I don't meet with, especially with women alone, because of the appearance of evil. And of all the things it could lead to. I just don't do that. So if I'm in my office, I've got our women's minister outside, my pastor knows. A lot of times I'll tell my wife. I've got accountability there for me. So wouldn't it be good to even do that with somebody of the same sex? Don't go meet with somebody to where they don't know where you are. Because again, it can turn south. It can go bad. Community ministries. Hopefully your church is out in the community and doing wonderful things. That gets us around people that are people, right? Because we're all messy. How many of y'all have been messy in your lifetime? I use that expression because I think it identifies who we are. I need grace. I'm desperate for Jesus for that, right? Because I'm a fouled up, flawed human being. And I don't know anyone who isn't. So when you go out to do ministries, you're putting yourself out there. Your flock is, hopefully you're taking them along and showing them what to do and letting them do the work. But they're going to come back to you and tell you stories that this seems to be a bad situation. This seems to be dangerous. And then you have to be able to take that and know what to do with it. Random street crime. How many of you have your church in an area where you have street crime? Just regular crime. Yeah. If you're in pretty much anywhere, there's a possibility for crime. We went to look at a church. They were helping us to start looking at the building process because it looked like they had done a really wonderful job for a church like ours, and they invited us in. They gave us their plans. I mean, they spent a lot of time with us. And so I asked them, I said, you're right here on the freeway on 45. Do you get a lot of problems out here? And they go, oh, we have people that just drop off the freeway all the time. Tons of people. Benevolence requests. People walk through. We'll find people in our facilities sometimes. They just show up. Well, from a church standpoint, yeah, that's great, man. We want people. But these are people that they need to be able to minister to, but safely. And most of that occurs when there are very few people there. So that isolation, what if you're out in an isolated area? Can that be dangerous? Yeah, because you're vulnerable. It'll take longer for a response. Racial hatred. We've never had a church attacked because of racial hatred in the United States, right? Ever? No, we have a long history of it. I thought when I retired from law enforcement, I'd be a history teacher. So I have a master's in American history. But everybody knows this. Does it still occur? Yeah, did we not just talk about Charleston? Yeah, this can happen, and they just show up. They're cowards. I can't imagine what goes through people's minds and their hearts. But you are faced with that. And are all of us vulnerable to it? Yeah. Hatred towards Christians in general, we talked about that. We know that that's part of who we are. Anger towards someone in the church. Does it have to be the pastor? Nope. Can it be my ex-wife? Yeah. Can it be my ex-husband? Not mine. But can it be? Yeah. Certainly. Can it be a child custody issue? Yeah, you won't let me see my kids. Well, I know where they are. I know where you're not with them. So I'm going to show up there at the church. I can intimidate this person. Why do we never leave one person there with the kids? Well, one reason is accountability, but another is safety. So that you confront me when I come up and they're my kids, you know they're mine, and you also may or may not know if I have custody, right? And I'm across the little counter from you, and I am intimidating you as best I can to get you to give me the kids, and they're screaming for their daddy because they haven't seen him in a while. But you have somebody with you that's back there doing that text or that phone call. And then senior pastor and security show up because she did her job. But you did your job first. You're going, we have a system. You have to be the person. Do y'all have those systems built into your church? Either through a computer where you have a sticker? Yeah, if you don't, please address it. And there are lots of different resources you can find. UBA will be more than happy to help you because they know how to get that done and how it's done all over Harris County. So please get that taken care of. Terrorism. We always talk about terrorism. Does it take place a lot? It seems like it all the time now, right? Like every time you turn on the TV, you're expecting, because we have cable news now, we have news 24/7. It's all the time. So we expect when you turn it on or get your Sirius radio, you're going to hear of another shooting. Again, as far as terrorism, most of it at churches are not. I always heard one pastor said, we're not attacked because we're not doing anything. We're not worth attacking. I went, well, that's a sorry attitude, but it's probably too accurate sometimes, right? But if you're out in the community and you're serving God, you're going to draw people who hate you. And the emotionally disturbed. Can you talk everybody out of these things? If they're bent on doing what they're doing? Is it okay to try to talk them out of it? Well, if I'm sitting there with a pistol on me and I don't have anything else and I'm going, yeah, I'm going to be doing some talking. But some people cannot be rationalize the situation. What is the appropriate response to a church, of the church to an active shooter? Here are the options in confronting an active shooter. Pray it does not happen. Depend on the police response. Talk them out of it. Run away. Hide. Lock down. Use deadly force. Develop a security team. Develop a workable plan and practice. Are any of those by themselves adequate? No. If your only option is immediate deadly force in every situation, that's probably not the appropriate response, right? Running away, can it be? Yeah. I mean, if you can run, great. If you can hide, fine. If you can be calling the police while you're doing it, better. Prayer? Is prayer a huge part of this? Well, if not, we're in the wrong building. You know, I mean, we're gathered here for a reason. And so we're a people of prayer. Do you pray? Do you have a prayer team? What if part of your security team was your prayer team? That on Sunday mornings they circle up and they spend time praying for not just your church, but for all the churches. But, you know, Lord, please, don't let this happen in Houston today. Don't let this happen in Texas, the United States, the world, please. I think it's where we start, isn't it? I mean, we either believe it or we don't. So it ought to be a part of our security, because He is our security, right? In so many ways. Is it adequate to just say that's all we're doing? We're just going to pray and hope that it doesn't occur. When I was thinking about this and when I was going through training, I thought about it. Is there instances in the New Testament especially of violent confrontations? Where can you think? Think about it. The one I came right to was the garden. When Jesus was being betrayed. And I read all the different accounts. And what happened? Jesus steps out, greets them. He goes, who are you here for? Who? And they go, Jesus of Nazareth. And he goes, I'm He. He asked them again. And the reason they think He did it, and I believe it, because He knew that they wanted Him, but He wanted them not to be taken with Him, right? Because that was also prophecy, but it was also because it's very practical. Who's going to spread the gospel? He knows where He's going. He's going to Calvary. In an empty tomb, thank God, right? But He stepped out. He could have blended off into the night. That was their place. That's where they went. He knew that area. He also could see the Kidron Valley. He knew who was coming. He even knew who betrayed Him. But what He did, He then had to respond to what happened. Who did what? Peter, right?
Sword.
Yeah, he pulls out a sword, and it wasn't a clean fishing knife. It was described as a sword, right? And he does what with it?
It's the ear.
Yeah, Malchus, he gets it right in the ear. You think he was trying for his ear? You're a Marine. Are you trained to go for the ear? No, it's not. We're not trained for that. What was he probably trying for? Yeah, he's trying for something a little more vulnerable and a little more deadly. So Jesus does what? He tells him what? Yeah, because what? Those who live by the sword, die by the sword. So you can take that and take it out of that context and say, well, that means never carry a sword, never. But if you read the other accounts in the gospel, they came and they said, should we pull our swords now? And He went, no. If they would have pulled their swords, what would the result been? To that group, they'd have been massacred. Then who would have been left? Jesus knew what He was doing. He knew the whole thing. And he was telling you, you pull those swords, you're going to die by them. So did He know they were carrying swords? They have concealed swords? Probably not. There's another account about when he told him about purchasing, right? So scripturally, I have no problem with being armed. I have no problem with deadly force. But if you're saying that that's who I am, you need to be well prepared and well trained and have, if at all possible, professional people. Because it's not something that just happens. Training has to be over and over. It's almost muscle memory on a lot of things as far as weapons. Some people say we don't want any weapons in the church because we don't want people shooting, trying to stop someone, because other people could be hit. So what you're saying is I would rather have the shooter be doing the shooting and not our people. Tactically, does that make sense? Can people get hit by friendly fire? Yeah, I mean, it's sad, but that happens. But those officers that would be there are trained a lot better than the average person in how to do that without hurting other people. It's not perfect, right? You described it as chaos earlier. It's a melee. Things are happening quickly. Decisions have to be made in nanoseconds. We can pray it doesn't happen. We can depend on the police response. You said that even in a minute, how much damage a shooter could do? They're getting there as fast as they can. Do they know exactly what's going on? It may be an 8-year-old calling on her cell phone trying to describe what's happening, hearing loud noises. People are screaming. I can't find my mom. That's all they know. They get there, they have to evaluate it and get in as soon as they can to end it. And that's what they'll do. But if you're counting on that, it's tough. Can you talk them out of it? Most of these shooters that have pre-planned, talking's not going to happen. You're never going to get the opportunity to talk, are you? It's hard to talk over gunfire. Run away. Is running and hiding okay? Yes. Yeah, especially if you're trying to get, what about senior adults? They're going to be able to run? Some can. Yeah, I'm a senior adult. I can go get my discount. So I can still motor pretty good. But can all of them? You just going to leave them? Or a 2-year-old? No. But if you can get them away, go out that door, get out. Because you know where the threat is, and get them out, and go into the woods, go to Miss So-and-so's house, have it pre-planned. Have an option. Hide. Can hiding work? They can't shoot you if they can't find you. What are they looking for? Easy targets. If I have to go look for you, that's not an easy target. So if I can hide a group of children and tell them, be quiet, maybe I can't lock them down at that point, but I can hide them. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not a coward if you're the person trying to save the lives. Don't always think that you have to be the one to charge. Lockdown. What is locking down? Could Ron lock down this room? Yeah. These doors can be locked. They're solid. It would take a pretty good effort to get in them. I have to assume that one can be locked too. I'd have to check before I could know if I could get in. Why turn off the lights? Yeah. And if we're real quiet and they can't get in, they may assume that we're not here. That door can be locked. Is it good to then stand in front of the door and look? No, why? It's weird. I can go to family and I don't stand in front of the door now. I'm trained not to. I sure don't stand in front of windows. Now, sometimes you have to get up to knock on the door to let people know, but I knock and I get back. They don't know me. They don't know if I'm a real police officer, so I don't stand in front of doors. Same thing with you. Get them out of the way, hide them in the room as best you can, turn out the light, and be as quiet as possible. That's your goal for a lockdown. And again, if somebody knocks on the door and goes, "Hey, it's pastor," and let's say it's your voice, you're the senior pastor, you're telling them they'd recognize your voice, why wouldn't you open the door?
Duress.
Yeah. Tell them.
Yeah.
So no, you don't do it. You have a pre-arranged signal. The use of deadly force. We've talked about it a little bit. But that's why putting together that security team is so important. And by vetting that security team. Knowing as best you can who you have and why they're there. Can people volunteer? Do you have people that volunteer for things and they don't have a clue in ministries?
Yes.
Yeah, it would be like me wanting to be in the praise band. Oh, wow. I wish we planned that. Yeah, thank you. You wouldn't want me on that, but maybe you would want me on your security team. See what I'm saying? Look for those people that are there for the right reasons. Develop a security team and develop a workable plan and then practice it. I'm going to sit down with my team. In my case, they're all police officers. It's easy, but we'll talk about what we've done right and what we've not done well. I know some gaps that I've seen. This has helped me prepare to even to go over it again. Your leader needs to stay current because in law enforcement things change and they're really good about educating themselves. They put it all out there for you. So that's one of the things you need to do is to have somebody that's dedicated to doing it. Identify human assets within the church. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. We talked about it last time and I believe you were all here. Locate police officers, firefighters, medical personnel, and military personnel within your church. People that are already attending. Do they have to be members? I'd rather have somebody that's a regular attender than a member, right? A lot of churches now, membership means they don't even have it, right? Because it doesn't mean anything to a lot of people, especially in this generation. They don't sign up for, I don't need to be a member. I just need to be active. I need to show up. I need to be a part. So if you have a deal that says, well, you have to be a member before you can be on our security team, is that effective? I know you're a SWAT officer, but we don't need you because you're a member, not a member. No, don't put any barriers that don't need to be there. Identify human assets outside the church. Local church police, community resource officers, fire prevention officers, hospital community outreach personnel, and paid security professionals. In Harris County, you would have a lot of professional security people that work for corporations, that work as security people for chemical plants, production. That's what they do every day, and they're very well trained. A lot of them are former police officers, so a lot of them are former military, and they have this built into their daily life. So don't just limit it to, well, I can only do this one thing. At least if nothing else for consultation. Developing a security plan for active shooters. A well-developed security plan does not guarantee prevention, achieves the following. It may deter, may give recognition prior to the act, mitigates the continued commission of the crime, reduces injury or loss of life. We talked a little bit about early on intelligence. So when something happens in the parking lot that may clue us in, the greeter team or the parking team, whoever you have out there that's actively doing something else for the church, they need to be your eyes and ears. They need to be that first line of response. In the Navy, I remember during World War II, my dad was in the fleet that landed on, he drove landing craft. And when they went to attack Okinawa, That's when the kamikaze attacks started really pouring in. And what the admiral did was send the picket destroyers out front, way away from the fleet, so that they could be the early warning system. They got hammered. But the main part of the fleet took a lot less damage because of what the outside destroyer screen did. So the further out you can get with your security, the better. Doesn't have to be people on the team, but it has to be people that are discussing with you what we're looking for. And you don't want this. You don't want them going into every car. Yeah. Inventorying. No, we don't want that. That's counterproductive to your mission. But if they see something, if they see a vest, a Kevlar vest, they need to let somebody know. That might be their backup. What about clips from a handgun? Yeah, you would want that reported. It may be completely nothing to it, but you don't want them rationalizing it away. What else might deter? You know, they're looking for easy targets, soft targets. What might deter them from coming into your house of worship?
We thought about just asking either the local police or sheriff's department just to park a car in the parking lot.
You know, that is a great suggestion. If they're available, let them know that, and we even do this with property that we have. You feel free to come and stop and do paperwork there. Do they have an inordinate amount of paperwork? Oh my goodness. It's the best thing about being in the ministry, or not the best, but it's one of them. I don't do a lot of paperwork. I don't have to. They do a ton of paperwork. They have a computer in their car, most of them now, so they can sit there and do it. What do you do to bless them? Go up and get, yeah, hey, a stereotype? Oh my goodness. Man, true? Yeah. Praise God. That's why I take snacks to our local police department. And she made it sound like it was all healthy. Not really. I bring healthy, but I also bring junk. But you get to know them. Is that not a way to also get them to maybe want to be a part of your church? Yeah. Don't run up to the patrol car. I mean, unless you want a bad result, don't do that. But go, officer, hey, can I talk to you? And visit, right? Carry on a conversation. Get to know them. If they're there and they know you want them there, what if they're doing paperwork there when you're not there? They back up into a part of it, black out. They're sitting there, great security. Now, can you count on them all the time? No, they're answering calls. They're going to Rex. But it's one more added layer of that security. I'm glad you mentioned that. What else? That paid security, armed, uniformed, police officer or security. If I'm out there, what does it tell the shooter? It's going to be a little harder target. It's going to be a lot harder target. First of all, this pastor has got a mind for security. They're not out there just to direct traffic. And it's one thing they have to address, is now they have a threat there. And if he's there or she's there, there may be another one that I can't figure it out. So it deters. Is it perfect? May they still come? If they have a reason to, if they're after somebody in your church, they may still come. Or they may look to do it at a different location. But it can deter if you have the right plan. We've talked about may give recognition prior to the act. It also mitigates the continued commission of the crime. No security setup that I know of can stop all of it from happening. You may not pick up on it. The best laid plans you put out there may not pick up. They may be that good. But once they're there, we want it to end as soon as possible. We talked about all the different ways we can do it. And I don't want to make this sound churchy, but prayer right then is really important. I can't tell you how many times I've prayed through pursuits and deadly encounters and bad situations. I'm thinking about how to solve it, but I pray. Literally. They're usually short, like help, but he knows what that is, right? If you've ever been on the other end of a door when you hear a shotgun racked on the other side, you pray. Same thing here. If I know I've got to get to you and I'm Billy Deacon, I'm not armed, but you're shooting people, I'm going to come after you and try to put you on the ground so that everybody can dogpile you and we can disarm you. Right? I'm praying between here and there. And I don't mean that to sound, but it's proper for who we are. To say, I need your help now. A lot of these are ended by you. Remember, really, you are the first responder because you're right here. If I'm here with a weapon, do you think the two of them could take me? They got a good shot at getting me down. Now, you're going to take some hits. But if you don't, if you're trying, these two can get to me. Taking him from the side would be a problem. You grabbing me around the eyes would be a problem for me continuing. Now, we may have a service for you later, but if I got to go, I'd rather be doing that. It would depend on the circumstances. And I used men in that example. What about women? Yeah. You go to the nursery and try to do violence. See how many moms show up, right? Yeah, grandmothers, woo. That will hurt you. Yeah, yeah, shoes. Hymnals are great. You turn them like that, bam, there are all kinds of weapons in a church. Pass the plate? Oh yeah, I got the plate. You can do anything. Normally it's going to be ended by you because the police don't get the opportunity to get there. They know what they're doing. But if you have them already there on row 3 singing, it's really good, right? I can't stress enough how much outreach you ought to be doing into those communities. What if you have a military base? Yeah. Very secure. The more, when a guy comes in to do intel, and I know that I look around and I find out where they are, I go, this is too much. I'll go find a softer target. I'm backing out. When you hear sirens like that, do you pray? That's one thing I'd do. Let me encourage you. Pray for every aspect of it.
I even pray when I see a car accident.
Yeah.
If there's not too much damage, but even now I pray for it.
Just the stress involved in it, right? Reduces injury or loss of life. If we have an effective plan that will intercede, is it going to be perfect? They tell you that the fog of war, you can have the best plans laid out, but they have to be able to adapt to the exact circumstance. Do you have everything pegged? If 4 men walked in with multiple long guns, lots of ammunition, and backpacks with explosives, I can't say that I could end that. But I can mitigate some of the damage. I can stop part of it. I can give some people an opportunity to get away, to hide, to be able to move some of the people that have a hard time moving when that happens. That's why you develop a plan. A security plan should have the following components: figure it out, lock out, get out, and take out. That's not talking about ordering lunch, right? It's not what we're doing. So the first part, figure it out. Early detection is critical in lessening injury and loss of life. We live in a post-9/11 world. Security officials constantly remind citizens to speak up if something or someone else appears to be a threat. I don't walk into a convenience store unless I know where the clerk is. I just don't. I'm going to try to find where they are. Why? Because I know if they're not there, there may be a reason. They may be stalking. That's fine. But they may be being robbed. And I want to know that before I go in. We need to have an awareness in a post-9/11 world about our environment. That we don't just walk around and, you know, everything's good. It's not. There are threats. So you need to be aware of those threats. The same thing at church. And please, one thing you'll have to fight after you leave here, because I always do, is now when I go to church, I'm like hypersensitive. Especially if you're preaching, it's hard. And so that's why you need to have somebody available to do that for you. Because if you just look like it as a constant threat all the time, it wears on you. And it's hard to focus on why you were originally there. And it's hard for me to love on people when I'm evaluating them, right? It's not. But if you have people that's their ministry, let them minister. Have it quietly done around them so that you don't have to. Why don't people speak out when they see a possible threat? We mentioned it earlier, rationalizing the threat away. Even if you're well trained, your mind will try to jump there. You've done it. I can promise you may not be aware of it, but you do it. Well, he's probably, or she's not in trouble because, or that didn't just happen. Or this is the reason, or these are 4 reasons why that was okay. Well, there may be reasons. There may be rational reasons. But rationalizing is something different. It's saying that I'm assuming that there are good things that happened when there may not be a good thing happening. It may be totally wrong. That's why people don't call. You ask around the houses of these people that are involved in shootings later, well, he seemed like a nice guy. And then they start thinking about it, except these 15 things that they were doing. Well, he was a good family guy, except they were always at the range. Why are they always at the range? Well, some people are just shooting, and they enjoy it. They're enthusiasts. But do you know the difference between an enthusiast and somebody that's on a mission? At least call and let local law enforcement know. Should you report things from the church to local law enforcement that you see within your community? Please. That's something else we do. We rationalize, and we don't want to be what? Snitches. Because we're taught not to be tattletales. Right? You go up, you know what my sister's doing? Fine, I'll deal with that, but I'm going to deal with you right now. Don't snitch. Well, in our world now, snitch. You may be totally wrong, but I can go, my bad, I'm sorry. I'll buy you coffee now. I was totally wrong about you. But tell your people it's okay. And how do you get the word out within the body of believers? Do you announce it from the pulpit? If you see anything that's, okay, you've just given up a huge advantage that you have. Where would that be appropriate? You can start out with your team, with your greeters, your staff, your nursery workers, your security staff, but also within your life groups can talk and have a conversation about, hey, just be aware of things at church. We don't want people to panic or anything like that, but just if you see something, please contact Brother Jerry or whoever and let them know so that we can have this ongoing intelligence. Don't want to offend. I don't want to offend them. There's somebody special in our community. They have long-standing ties. If you live in a small town environment, that can be an issue. Well, you know, they're so-and-so. Or they have this situation in the community, they have a title, or they have some kind of power. They're elected official. Can anybody be involved in some of this? Yeah, so you don't, oh, I don't want to offend a church member. They may not come back. Well, if they're up to something like that, I don't want them to come back. Right? They don't want to offend people. Feel that it isn't their place. I just show up on Sunday. I sit in the back. Great, you can observe. You're in a great position. You're also near the door where they're fixing to come in. You need to get involved. But people won't. They go, well, I only come every third Sunday, if that. Or that's for the security people to take care of. Somebody else will handle it. When we had that issue where the guy was running on pews at the church, people came up to me and went, we thought it was part of what was part of the program. It's a Christmas program. I'm not sure why they thought people running on the back of the pews screaming was part of the program. But they didn't want to offend anybody by getting up and saying anything because it was church. Yeah, well, church can be not good. Want to be politically correct. Well, I certainly don't want to say anything or harm anybody because of my preconceived notion. I'll find out if it's politically correct later. I'll go ahead and opt out for that. If you want to judge me, that's great. I'm doing it because I want you to be safe. You just don't. We don't profile people. For us, it's illegal, but it's immoral. But I can profile your actions. I definitely can. I don't see anything wrong with that. That is effective. And to me, that is politically correct. Our church members should know that it's their responsibility to report a possible threat and know how to report it. Greeters are often the first line of our defense. We've talked about that. Many potential threats can be spotted in a parking lot or entryway into the facility. They can see weapons, ammunition, masks, backpacks, bulletproof vests, and unusual behavior. Ushers, deacons, as well as staff can be active participants in helping to report possible threats. Make sure that you are clear on where and to whom you can report suspicious activity. You should use technology to facilitate communication of a possible threat. Lockout. Why? Spend time walking your church grounds and facility. If you have a PA system, make sure it's in working order. Make sure classrooms, bathrooms, office facilities, and meeting rooms can be actually locked down. Do you know about the rooms in your church? Can they be locked? Are you sure? When was the last time you checked? If you're assuming, you may want to go back and do a walkthrough, right? If the threat is outside the church building, lock the outside doors. So if you see something bad happening in the parking lot, can you lock the door to keep people out? Yeah. On some churches, it's not going to keep them out long because it's glass, and they're going to blow through that. But what did it do? Slowed them up. And that's what we're looking for, at least some time to be able to react. If you have outside classes, they should be locked down. Do not move people outside classes into inside to be locked down. Well, we're in a pretty secure environment here, and we're locked down here, but we need to all be together, and there's no rationale for it. Why? Because when you move, you're a target. That threat can move quickly. Have a signal, and we've talked about it, so that people will know when the lockdown's over, and repeat the signal. Staff and volunteers should know to lock down if they see or the threat or hear gunfire. Do they have to wait for a command to lock down? No, there can be a command to lock down, but what if they know the threat? Well, we didn't have the command to lock down, so I just left the door wide open. No, that doesn't make sense. Free them up to lock down if they need to. Move people away from the doors and windows, turn off the lights, get quiet and stay low. Hide if possible. Do not come out until a prearranged signal is given. Get out. Why? Depending on the situation, if possible, get out. If you're able to leave the premises safely, do so. Keep moving. You can be found later. You know, I might have a time where I can't find my loved one, my child, my grandchild, my wife, but if they're safe, I will eventually find them. Somebody will bring them, they will contact me. I just want to know they're safe. Keep on going. You may want to have a place to gather back together, but don't have it out in the open within a couple of blocks. Because why? If he does leave, you're all standing there at the safe place. Be careful. If you're able to leave the premises, do so. Take out. Why? Can you take out an active shooter? Again, it's on-duty police personnel. Who can do it? They can. Hired church security, police and private security, police who attend your church, citizens who are licensed to carry weapons, whoever is close at hand to the shooter. What if somebody is an unlicensed carrier, but they're carrying and they end it? Yeah, they may go to jail, but they were a hero, right? It can happen. Not advocating it. We're supposed to obey the law. So don't preach it, but it could happen. But normally the first responders are going to be you as you go. We're going to leave our information, Ron and I, to connect. He has a long history in law enforcement. And if you need to talk, please call. If you can't find resources within your community, I'll send my wife. She'll come. No. We will be more than happy to come and talk to you about putting together a team or looking at your security plans. Huntsville's not that far. I know Houston really well. I've been stationed here. So we would love to come and talk to you. Okay?